Hiya, I'm Sarah, I'm 20 years old and I'm from the UK. Today I'm going to be discussing my fear of dogs, cynophobia. This is for everybody, so it's for everybody who is scared of dogs, but also it's for dog owners and people in general who don't really understand this fear and want to know more about it and where to start. It means a lot to me to make this video because I think it's something that could really help people. When I personally look on YouTube, when you search cynophobia, scared of dogs, fear of dogs, the videos aren't really the most helpful, they're not the most relevant. Usually they can be quite dated or they're not really the most empathetic towards the person. They don't really show what it's like. So I thought if I sit in front of a camera and I put myself out there, then people can look at me and think, well, that girl's going through a similar thing. And I think it's really reassuring when someone can articulate not only how it feels, but also things you wish people knew. So I really hope that I can deliver with that. The main thing I also want to come across in this video is debunking stereotypes and harmful narratives and talking about sometimes things that aren't necessary and things that people think are helpful but they're not always helpful. So I really want to start out by saying that I genuinely don't hate dogs. I don't hate them at all. I don't have anything against them. I know that they are just animals, really. I think it's so lovely that people can give dogs good homes and people can bond with their pets. And I don't think people are doing anything wrong by walking their dogs in public. I think a lot of people who are scared of dogs really want you to know that they are just sensitive people and they probably do have so much empathy and care for animals. It's just probably a case of they can't always cope being around them, obviously dogs in particular. And I think a lot of the time, people who are scared of dogs, their character tends to be attacked, whether or not it's just through stereotypes or actual things people say. One thing I really don't like is that people are untrustworthy. I think anybody who is scared of anything, that's a side of them that makes them vulnerable. And it's just an example of how some people are vulnerable, even if not everybody has that vulnerability, they'll have another different kind of vulnerability. So I really think that a lot of empathy is needed. Because to call somebody untrustworthy because of a fear that's not really their choice, it's just so it's just so like irrelevant, you know what I mean? I think yes, dogs can probably detect changes in emotion. Yes, they can probably, I don't know, smell hormones and sweat and things like that. But I think that's taken out of context a little bit, and I think one thing in particular that really disgusts me, if I'm being honest, is well, something I heard quite a lot as a kid growing up. I mean, people don't really say it to me now in my 20s. I wonder why. But one thing I always heard as a kid is dogs can smell fear on you. And I don't really know why that's helpful, to be honest. For me personally, not only is it not very comforting, but it makes things worse, in my opinion. Because if I'm worried about being susceptible to dogs, why would I want to be more susceptible to dogs? I feel like people who say that they don't really want to dissolve the problem, or at least if they do want to dissolve the problem, they're just not taking the most appropriate approach when they say things like that because it's doing more harm than good. People who are scared of dogs really don't want to be a problem to other people. They don't want to worry other people. They're already telling themselves that they're being silly, and it's not logical to be scared of dogs. But saying that, it's so important to respect other people's boundaries. A lot of people assume that, when they see me in public and maybe I'm uncomfortable or scared of the dog, a lot of people assume that I'm just a bit naive and I've never seen a dog before. They assume that their dog is the exception and all I need to do is pet it or be around it for a few minutes and then, my fear of dogs will magically disappear. And a fear of dogs, it is plural. I suppose what I mean by that is, on the surface, yes, I can distinguish between different breeds of dog. I can see there's small dogs, there's big dogs. I understand that a lot of breeds like Jack Russell, Labrador, Chihuahua, they're all supposed to be friendly, and a lot of the time, I suppose they do mean well and they are friendly animals. But what people don't realise is that I have actually grown up around them. Everybody in my family had dogs throughout my childhood, even from 4 years old. Before 4 years old, I've had dogs in my life. So please just be kind to people. So I do want to reassure dog owners that my fear of dogs really isn't anything personal against them and their dog particularly. I'm scared of all dogs. And even though I've made massive amounts of progress with it over the years, um, again, I'm just scared of dogs. It's just something that happens to a lot of people, and it really isn't anything personal. As I say, I'm not prejudiced against Buster from, I don't know, 146 Toffee Street. You know, I'm not I'm not going out declaring war against Santa's little helper from 142 Evergreen Terrace. Do you know what I mean? It really isn't. Um, it really isn't meant to be anything personal. It's just a natural, organic response. But something that really does upset me, whether it's come from, family members I've had in the past, or whether it's come from people I don't know in the public, is when a dog comes up to me and I'm clearly very distressed or uncomfortable, and someone says, "Oh, it's just being friendly," or, "Well, my dog's friendly." And it is very understandable that people say that. A lot of people in this world are genuinely so kind and so lovely. I know I'm going on and I'm ranting and I'm complaining about, oh, I don't like it when dog owners make assumptions and they say this, but I genuinely do believe that most people in this world are genuinely so kind, and they genuinely do mean to be reassuring. But even though I think it's understandable that people say things like that, it's honestly one of the worst things that you can say to somebody who's scared of dogs. I suppose, I think from our end, if we're really terrified and uncomfortable, um, it sort of comes across like you maybe, well, I mean, I don't want to say it comes across like people don't care, but it's just sort of like, I don't mean to sound entitled, but I think if you do see someone who's uncomfortable or scared, as I say, you can do something about it. All you need to do is just gently, swiftly, efficiently just guide your dog away from the person who's scared. That's all you need to do. I think that, I don't want to say it comes across as like people are making excuses, because, as I said, dogs do have different temperaments, and 9 times out of 10, I absolutely agree. Dogs are being friendly, but it just comes across as an excuse because the person who's scared of dogs isn't just intimidated by the dog's presence, they're intimidated by the fact that somebody can see that they're uncomfortable, and they're just kind of not being very empathetic about it, I suppose. The thing is I don't want to have them and us mentality. I want everybody to be united. I want everybody to feel comfortable. And I've talked about how I don't like stereotypes about me, so I don't want to enforce stereotypes about other people. As I say, most people who do have dogs or even do like dogs, they're probably lovely people, and I really hope that people don't take it to heart when I say things like that. It is just my opinion. Um, I kind of want people to understand how it feels to be scared of dogs. And for me personally, yes, there's heart palpitations. Yes, there's that adrenaline. Yes, it's just pure dread and pure panic. Um, but there's also another aspect to it. I think the more I was forced to be around dogs, especially growing up, constantly being around dogs, it really, it really, I guess I kind of absorbed this layer of depression. Now, that is quite a serious term to use. Obviously, people going through depression, it's a serious thing, but I do genuinely mean that when you do get a sense of depression, as well as the pure heart beating, the pure adrenaline, the pure panic, it's not just fear as in and waving your arms around, there's a sense of being so miserable and so trapped. It's like if you feel really heartbroken or really, really guilty, or if you've ever if you've ever fainted, it's like right before you faint, it can be very nauseous for a lot of people. Um, it's kind of like a panic attack and depression at the same time. It's kind of like your body wants to have a panic attack, but you're telling yourself that you have to just be calm as you possibly can and mask a little bit, if that makes sense. It's kind of like my natural reaction when I'm around any dogs, and this has always been the same ever since, as I say, I was 4 or even before then. I can remember being 4. Um, I can't remember before then. But my natural reaction has always been to either freeze on the spot or to back myself in the corner. I don't like the idea of running away. I don't like the idea of being chased. I don't like the idea of flapping my arms round and drawing attention to myself. I don't like the idea of scaring the dog, and also I don't like the idea of anything happening to the dog. I wouldn't want anything to happen to it, but at the same time, whenever a dog comes near me, it's like an electric shock without the electric. I know that sounds really silly. It sounds really daft, but it's true. Um, I just kind of naturally want to repel myself. It's just so, I guess, horrifying to me and disgusting to me a little bit as well when dogs want to come up to me. And again, I'm not disgusted by the dog. I do think that dogs are cute in their own way, and I do know they mean well. But it is just something that affects me. The reason why I bring it up is because everybody processes fear differently, and I would say that I know I've just talked about how it affects me and things like that, but I think especially nowadays I'm a lot more calm than I used to be, and I suppose I am calmer than other people. So I know that there are people out there who have worse reactions than I do. Something that's beyond the cold sweats and feeling like my stomach's gonna fall out and the shaky legs and things like that. I know that other people unfortunately may have worse reactions, and I think this is why I do want to raise awareness about this and I do want to speak out about this because I know it sounds silly to some people, but I know this is going to sound really harsh, but you wouldn't see the funny side of it if someone started clutching their arm, if you get what I'm saying. You wouldn't be seeing the funny side of it if someone was to flat out faint in front of you, or if you knew that actually some people who are scared of dogs, and I know this is going to sound really horrible, but swallowing their own sick and things like that, like in their mouth, because they just don't want to be a problem to people. And again, I know that most people mean well, and I don't want to come on the internet and be negative or anything like that. I want this to be a safe space for everybody, but I really do think it's important to raise awareness about it and really try to consider the feelings of other people. A lot of people say actually that being scared of dogs, it's kind of like if you see a big tarantula or like the basilisk from Harry Potter. You know what I mean? You've got to think of something that you're absolutely terrified of and understand how you would feel in the same situation if you were absolutely terrified of something and you were in a parallel universe where that was just the norm. I really don't think you would see the funny side of it. And I'm not saying that everyone thinks it's funny. It's just some people, and I do know that. Um, So another thing I want to talk about as well, and this is a bit more positive, I suppose. Yeah, this is more positive. This is a nicer thing to hear. Um, I kind of want to talk about I kind of want to talk about when I was a kid. I still liked watching Snoopy and Scooby Doo and things like that. I love those things. It's just physically being around dogs. Again, the concept of dogs is fine to me. Even when I look at photos of dogs, I mean everybody's different, but even when I look at photos of dogs, it doesn't really bother us. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't bother us. Um, but yeah, just being around them. Because one thing I loved, especially when I was really little as well, ironically, is I loved playing on Nintendogs on my DS. You know, like the DS. I'm pretty sure you know what a DS is. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, I loved playing on Nintendogs actually, and it didn't really help with my fear, as in practically being around dogs. Um, but I think it did help with the empathy side of things. I think it helped me understand that dogs are just normal pets. So that is something I would recommend if you have little kids. I can't promise it's gonna dissolve the fear or actually help them in person, but I think the concept of having a pet, of having a dog for a pet, I think that that's a good thing to teach kids. Another thing is that as I've mentioned before, my fear of dogs, I personally feel like I've made progress with it, and some of it is kind of maturity. I don't want to say I've grown out of my fear of dogs because I don't think that's entirely accurate for a lot of people, you know, whether they're 4 or 40 or, you know, even 100. People all over the globe are scared of dogs. A lot of adults, especially, are scared of dogs as well as kids, even though kids are more sensitive and more vulnerable because the world is so much more heightened to them anyway, I suppose. But yeah, a lot of adults are scared of dogs, but I do think I personally have made progress with my fear of dogs over the years. And the reason why is because I just haven't been exposed to them as much. It's sort of like when I see a dog in the park nowadays, it's not a permanent part of my life. I know I can just take a deep breath and walk past it, or I know that I know that where I live now, it is a nice area where people are quite kind. So people do tend to be more understanding about it. And I think that that's something that really helps is when people have a kind reaction to your fear of dogs. They don't make fun of you or anything like that or make comments or just stand there watching. That really helps when people are kind. But I think what helps is that knowing that, you know, you don't have to have dogs in your life. I think grown up with so many people who were, I suppose, were in my family at the time who had all these dogs. Even, you know, when they knew I was scared of dogs, they would go out and like get a dog, bring a dog back um, to the house, even though they knew I was scared of dogs. I don't have that stress in my life anymore. I don't have that variable that's in my life anymore. So I think that's actually something that's helped me quite a lot personally because I'm not delusional. I do understand that some exposure is good to dogs. Some exposure is, well, I suppose some exposure is good to dogs, but also, I mean, the person who's scared of dogs, absolutely, some exposure is really good, but it's got to be on their own terms. You can't force these things. Um, when you try and force someone to be around dogs, and they're not ready for it, um, a lot of the times it can make things worse. Even if you're trying to help them, you're trying to encourage them to be around dogs so they're more used to dogs. When you force someone out of their comfort zone, it makes them feel quite unsafe and kind of like they're pushed into the lion's den. It's almost like you're covered in Lady Gaga's meat dress and you're just thrown into that lion's den. um, you know, when people put you in situations like that, not just around dogs, but when people know that you're going to be feeling uncomfortable, um, it just makes you feel really unsafe and like you can't really trust the person as much because they're putting you in these situations which you know is giving you anxiety and you feel like you're not really protected by people that are supposed to be there for you. So it's definitely something to consider, because my main point in this is that yes, it's good to be exposed to dogs if you're scared of dogs, but it needs to be on your own terms. And even if you change your mind and you turn around and say, I'm not comfortable, you need to have people that honour those boundaries. And this kind of leads me, I guess, back to the whole stereotypes discussion that we had before. I really don't like the stereotype of me or the dog, or I guess people are presented to have that kind of attitude. And I disagree with it, because I just wouldn't get into a relationship where someone had a dog. I wouldn't want to put someone through that. I wouldn't want someone to choose between me or the dog. And I really hope that they would choose the dog, because the dog's probably been in your life first and it's an animal, it doesn't know any better. But saying that, um, if I was with somebody in a long-term relationship, if I was living with somebody, um, whether they were whether they were my spouse or whether they were my flatmate, um, I'm going to be honest, I would consider it to be emotionally abusive if they got a dog and they knew I was scared of dogs. Um, Especially when, you know, people do that to their kids as well. People think, oh, my kid's scared of dogs, let's get a dog. Oh no, what you doing that for? Yeah, one of the best things that you can do to help somebody who's scared of dogs, or at least make them feel better in the moment, is first of all, remind them how brave they're being, and actually remember that, you know, um, to walk around in this world where, you're scared of, well, just so many of the dogs that just happen to be around, it can be very brave for a lot of people to even walk past a dog in the street. I know that the same's for me. So that's definitely something that you can do. And another thing that you can do is, say if you're in the park and somebody is scared of dogs, your dog goes up to somebody and they look a bit uncomfortable or timid, or any symptoms of anxiety really. What you can say to them is, as well, once you've taken your dog away from them or you've called them back to you, what you can do is, if you want to say something, you can say something like, oh, I could tell that you're a bit uncomfortable, or I could see that you're a bit overwhelmed and I wanted to do something about it. Um, you say something like, I'm not gonna let you carry on feeling like that. I think that's a much more better approach to some of the other approaches I've had. So that's what I would recommend. Reassuring the person, especially if they're a young child, how brave they've been, and that it's difficult for them. Sometimes instead of joking about things, it's actually better to acknowledge what they're going through, because then it makes the person who's scared of dogs feel heard, and I think that that's something that really helps them. And I think as well, it goes without saying that if anyone comes round to your house and you have a dog, please just ask them if they feel comfortable with the dog being there. And if they don't, or they can't for whatever reason, just maybe put the dog in another room just for the 10 minutes or so while they're there. It's always good to ask people what their preferences are. Um, yeah, so I just want to end this video by saying, if you're scared of dogs, you're probably a lovely person and you haven't done anything wrong. Also, if you have a dog or you just like dogs, again, you're probably a lovely person who hasn't done anything wrong. But I think the main gist is to have empathy towards people, as I say, be kind, and just make sure that we're trying our best to accommodate everybody. Um, Obviously, if you don't know that people are going through things, then it's not your fault, and don't be too discouraged if you have had some of these attitudes, or you used to think these stereotypes about people. If you've not met anybody who's scared of dogs, then it's hard for you to know what they're going through if you've not experienced it yourself. But I do hope that you got something from this video. I hope that people feel reassured, and I hope that you have a lovely day or night, afternoon. I hope that you're just really happy and well, whoever you are and wherever you are. I know that sounds a bit silly and cheesy to say, but it's true. So goodbye and hope you enjoyed the video.